Hi, everybody. This is Nancy Hopkins. You're listening to the Shungite Radio Show. It is August 28th, 2018. I had to think about that one for a second. 2018. And as it is, we have a very interesting guest. Well, we always seem to... Stephanie gets some really interesting guests. So, Steph, why don't you introduce her? Stephanie Dietz.
Hey guys, welcome to the Shungite Show. Today is Tuesday, August 28th, and today we have with us Julie Roberts. Julie is a skilled gatekeeper and a grid worker who fuses science, the stars, and spirituality in an incredibly well-grounded knowledge of all three. She's an energy engineer and an architect of life, and a dedicated and playful student of life. Along her journey, she has sought after the best systems of moving forward and celebrating a long life in a healthy body. She has sat with the cutting-edge researchers and healers of our time. Everyone she has spent her time with has taught her something, or rather, helped her remember something she already knew deep inside of her core. She's a trained healer and a student of Satnam Rasnan, a branch of vibrational healing. She has also studied polarity therapy, zero-point balance, and cranial sacral techniques. In bringing it all together, she has learned over the years that she can offer you a deep journey through your inner space. She has synthesized all of her techniques for self-healing, keeping herself happy and vibrant in her inner space healing. She also holds teaching certificates in Kripalu Yoga, Anusara Yoga, and Chakra Yoga. She is trained in yoga therapy using biomechanical alignment principles and the wisdom of the elements to bring the body into balance. She has been teaching and healing since 1999, and her passion for it deepens every day. She has a BS in aerospace engineering and grew up wanting to be an astronaut. Through her practice of yoga, studying with shamans and healers, exploring how ancient cultures lived on the earth, she realized everything she was seeking through space travel could be found in her inner space. Awaking to the call of healing the planet, she used her engineer degree to forge into the field of ecological engineering and sustainable design for many years. During these years, she was also teaching yoga part-time. The call to healing work with individuals became louder than working with her computer. So in 2001, she transitioned to the field of energy healing and yoga full-time. After working in many studios in central Massachusetts, she founded Flow Worms Yoga in 2004. She was the co-owner and director of the Yoga and Healing Center until 2013, then transferred the ownership in the summer of 2013 to focus her healing practice to her family. She's also a mother of 2 children, right, Julie? 2?
Yes, 2.
2 children, yep. The most important, she is a mother. So we look forward to sharing some inner space healing with you. You're just absolutely fascinating. I had to read the whole bio because of it. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me. I've actually had like tears. I've never had anyone read my bio out loud to me. That was a really powerful experience. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I really enjoyed reading it because it's just so fascinating to see that your passion was that you wanted to be an astronaut. And through all of these healing modalities and your grid keeping and gatekeeping, you know, it's all inner. It's all inner space. So why don't you just start on your journey from growing up, wanting to be an astronaut to here you are now.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah. Like, when you're little, if people ask you what you want to do when you grow up, it was always astronaut. It was always, anytime I looked up in the stars, it was like, I just would get that fluttery feeling in my heart and in my belly and like, I have to go there. I have to go there. And I didn't even quite know what it meant or, so, and I was always, when I was young, I didn't have any context for it, but I had a whole bevy of light body friends I know now, like, imaginary friends, and I would talk to squirrels, and like I was, just in my own thing, doing my thing. Fast forward to high school, I always liked math and science classes. They always came really easy to me and were fascinating. And then I was like, well, I want to be an astronaut. I have to get into space. So I'd take the aptitude tests, and I'd be like, oh, okay, aerospace engineering. Maybe if I build the spaceships, they'll let me drive them to space. So I did that a little circuitously, but I did eventually get a degree in aerospace. But I had my poor single mom drop out of college, my 4th semester of senior year. I moved to California, and I had my, spiritual awakening and finding myself. And somewhere along that way, I came back to wanting to go to like either naturopathic school or osteopathic school. I knew I wanted to do healing work because I had an awakening out in California about like the earth as a sentient being and like what's my role in helping with that and helping the earth. And it was a big wake up. And then whatever, I had to finish my bachelor's. I had to actually get the bachelor's to go to like acupuncture school or to go to a master's level. So I ended up finishing my degree 10 years later. And in that time, when I was in aerospace engineering school, was the first, when we say Gulf War now, you can't even remember, but it was like 91. The first time there was like Reagan's Gulf War or Bush's Gulf War. And I went to my professor, an aerospace engineering professor, and the class I wanted to take my whole life was called Flight Vehicle Design. And during that class, he worked at Raytheon, which is one of the leading missile design places that built the Patriot missile and Scud missiles. And he turned our class into like during the war, like, check marks on the board, like, yeah, direct hit. And I was like sickened by being in his class. I just couldn't. And so I went to his office hours and said, I can't keep coming to your class. I wanted to do flight vehicle design, not missiles. And he was like, well, who do you think you are? You're in school for aerospace engineering. You're going to work for a defense company. That's what we do. And I was like, oh. So that precipitated my, leaving of the field. Anyway, circling back around. So when I was doing a lot of yoga, I was working full time. I was commuting to Boston to finish my degree. And I started doing yoga. And it was like love at first move. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. So I did yoga teacher training along the way just to so I could know more, so I could do my practice at home, so I could be a self-teacher. And then I did find a way to use my engineering for good, as I say in my bio. I found this gentleman, his name is John Todd. He's an ecological engineer, and he designs living machines, like basically taking wastewater, polluted water, and he runs it through a constructed ecosystem, fish, plants, bioremediation, that kind of thing, in a greenhouse. And then the effluent, the water comes out clean and clear. So he has he'd have floating, growing rafts in like polluted streams and rivers and lakes. He sets up greenhouses along the banks of rivers to do water remediation and cleanup. And I was like, oh, well, that's something I can, I have this mechanical engineering degree. I can use it for good. So I volunteered for him for many years, commuting back and forth. And then I did find myself a job working for this company called Sustainable Strategies. And we sometimes did like septic systems, like to make the bread and butter. But what we really did was wash water gardens. So we'd attach a greenhouse to a house, install composting toilets, and then evapotranspirate away the gray water. So that was really fun. And I learned a lot doing that. And I was doing that. And then I was teaching yoga part-time. And then I just had this like it said in the bio, I got to get away from my computer. I just want to be with people. So I took this like leap of faith. Just when I got myself my dream job as an ecological engineer, I stepped away from it and started teaching yoga full time, which was very gratifying. And then I opened a studio with a dear friend of mine, and we had that studio for 12 years. Should I just keep going? I'm just talking about myself. Is this what you want me to do? Stephanie, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I had a son along the way, which was a big thing. And I was running a large yoga studio with, management of staff and schedules and websites and yada yada. And it was taking me away from being with my son. And I wanted to have another child, and I knew I just couldn't balance all that. It wasn't like fair to my family. And I was spending a lot of my time promoting other people's classes, promoting other people's workshops, and doing all that management stuff. I was like, I just need to do it different. And this was, now you look back, that was 2012. Like it was right around the fall of 2012. So we all know that was like a shakeup for lots of the world. And I was like, I need to recalibrate myself again. So I kind of gave away the yoga studio to the woman who was managing it for me and tried to teach in her paradigm. But it was just like one of those, I just got to pop this sphere of existence and start another way to be. So now I own this beautiful yoga, healing, energy aligning center. It's called Inner Space Healing. And I work mostly one-on-one with people. I do light body balancing, activation, energy body healing. People come in and whatever they need. I have a whole bunch of tools in my toolbox. And so I think I know for sure that I've been like grid working and maybe gatekeeping my whole life. But in 2016, I was following the Standing Rock. I'm sure anyone listening to this was also following that. Mm-hmm. And in listening to some of the people on Facebook, I followed a lot of people on Facebook, and one of them shared one of Katie Indicrow's guided group meditation things. And I was like, oh, what's she doing? Like, it was kind of like love at first hit with her. I was like, I need to be working with her. I don't know. So I watched her videos for a while, and then pretty soon, in like January 2017, I just started like taking every class she offered and doing lots of work with her. And in her grid working school, really, I think from its beginning. And I'm going to dovetail this into the beehive right here. So last summer, in June, July, somewhere in there. So I'd done a lot of levels of her energy work and then her basic grid working training out of Indie Crow Academy, which I would highly recommend to anyone who hears this and thinks like, I'd like to be doing some of that stuff. Like, it's great platform, earth-changing, life-changing, revolutionizing material to study. And I was in one of her Grid Worker 2, Level 2, or advanced classes, and there was a group of us around the globe, and she asked us each to pick out, she's like, well, let me show you how grid working works in action. So there was a teammate in Ireland, one in South Africa, Massachusetts, and she's told each of us to choose a site, a local site that we wanted to work with. So intuitively, energetically, a little bit of Google research, I found that really close by to where I live and really, really close to where my son goes to school, there was what they call the Upton beehive chamber. And I was like, huh. And it just had that like calling in, when a site calls you in, like, I got to go check it out. So I worked with it remotely. And then the first day that I went to go see it in person, so as you mentioned, I'm a mom. So during all this, like the grid worker trainings, I would teasingly and realistically, I would always call myself like, I'm doing grid working, ... sleeping toddler edition. Because I'd always have my girl in the back seat, What does a grid working multitasking mom do? She does nappy loops, driving the grids with crystals on my dashboard and feathers in my hand, just like I can't be as active and all around the globe as some grid workers can, but I have my backyard and I have, 2-year-old legs to walk with. So I would do a lot of work from the car and driving a lot of lines and charging up sites. And so the first time I went to go see the beehive chamber, it was a summer day, like a warm summer day like today. And if you guys know the New England weather, thunderstorms do crop up in the afternoons, like quite frequently. But this one was like kind of out of the blue for real. So I was at a friend's house having a play date, and I was picking my son up at the camp that he was doing at his school. I was like, I'm going to buzz by the beehive chamber, check it out. And as I got closer and closer, the skies got darker and darker and darker. And then when I got to it, it was like I had to turn away because there was like leaves coming down, limbs coming down. So it turned out there was a microburst mini tornado that moved through like right around the site that day. And I was a little like there was just a lot of electricity in the air and energy. And I'll admit, like at first it like put me off or kind of scared me a little, but then I recalibrated and I got home and I realized it was really Mother Nature, like kind of purifying the area for me. So when I first went in, because there's a lot of overlays on this site, it's been, I don't want to say neglected, but maybe, neglected and misused maybe for decades. And, but also preserved by the town. So I ended up going back, and last summer I really just spent a lot of time hanging out there, not doing anything like fancy or special except like sitting and being and just kind of communing with the site. And it definitely has Stargate qualities to it. And me and this team that I spoke of identified it as a hub site where a lot of different places come in together. One of my other teammates in this class, her name is Sonia. She was investigating, she lives in Michigan. She was very informed about a lot of the Native American trails in her area. So it got me researching native trails around here. And when I researched them, they all come together as this point, this star point, like right here in the town that I live in. And it was one of those, and I was like, oh, the chamber has that nexus quality, like convergence of grid lines, and then maybe these native paths. We determined we guesstimated last summer that a lot of these native trails must follow grid lines, lines of the earth that the energy flows. So I worked with it a bunch last fall, and then maybe through October, and then it had been preserved by the town. There's this little park there. It's called Heritage Park. And it's not used for much. I feel like the town made it just for me, so I can go there and hang out. But I've only met a few people ever there. But the park closes, and we get feet and feet of snow, and it left my attention field in the end of October. And then this spring, maybe I could kind of hear it talking in my periphery, maybe around February, more like April. And so I've returned to it a bunch and really wanted to investigate energetically what's happening there, like what was the site used for. And there's been two groups of archaeologists and professional people that have gone in. One was like 1950, early 50s. Have either of you heard of America's Stonehenge or the Mystery Hill site in New Hampshire?
I have, but I don't remember it, and explain it to our audience, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
There was just a team of interested, New England Archaeological Research Association, I think, NERA they're called, and they were looking at a lot of this. There's hundreds and hundreds of stone chambers all throughout New England. And there are teams of different people that are interested in them for different reasons. So in the early 50s, this team of archaeology professors found this site. Actually, somebody bought the house, and when they were signing the papers for the house, they're like, hey, let me show you this cave that's in the backyard. And the guy was like, whoa. So this chamber it's about like 3 feet high, the tunnel. So it has a tunnel that's about 14 feet long. That's all stone. So it's dry, it's underground. It's dry masonry, meaning the stones aren't grouted together. They're just stacked. And then it opens up to this giant dome that's about 12 feet by 10 feet, around, say, a 12-foot sphere. But it's shaped like a dome, like a beehive. So there's this team of archaeologists that inspected it, tried to do some carbon dating, tried to figure out who built it and when and what they used it for. So the baseline, like what everybody somebody wrote to the Smithsonian of this team, and they said, it's a root cellar from Colonial. And they're like, it's a root cellar. There's 2 feet of standing water. It's really damp. And this gentleman, his last name is Pearson, was like, that does not satisfy me. So he basically trained himself in archaeology, and then he's been like a very big champion of finding out what these sites are about. So he's written a few books. So this summer I've bought, at least 10 books, like all the books I could find in local libraries and that kind of thing, to do the research of what people have figured out. So one of his relatives or one of his friends owned the land. And then there's another family that bought land in a similar way in southern New Hampshire, right over the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border, a site that's called Mystery Hill. And that has tons of these chambers and passageways and stone sites. And it turns out that structure, Mystery Hill, is an archaeological calendar or archaeoastronomy calendar, where you look over this stack of rocks this way, and you can see the summer sun solstice sunset. And you look over here and it's, aligned to all the equinoxes, solstices, and the cross-border holidays. So it acts like an astronomy calendar. So people have called it America's Stonehenge, not because it looks like Stonehenge, but because that Stonehenge in the UK is set up to do that. So I like to call it Mystery Hill because the America's Stonehenge to me feels a little commercialized, if you know what I mean. But it's still like it's one of the sites, because I think people think of sacred sites and then they think, oh, that's in, they're in Egypt, they're in Cairo, they're in England, but I don't think a lot of people think like, oh yeah, they're here in my backyard. And the truth is, they're here in your backyard, a lot of them. And especially, and even for me, when I started this class in New England, I was like, wow, gosh, I guess I'll have to travel to Ohio where Serpent Mound is, because, to do something local, because that's the only one I've heard of. And I did know about Mystery Hill, but it was just for one of the grand discoveries for me in this whole journey is like, these places are everywhere. And we really are just in this process as we raise the vibration of the grids, and as the crystalline grid becomes stronger and stronger, it feels like a lot of these sites are both like popping up into our awareness field. And like literally, like if you heard what's happening over in Ireland with the drought, like some sites are popping up to the surface so humans can see them with their eyeballs, in addition to just energetically. So going back to the beehive chamber that I'm local to, this spring, it was like called my attention into what I needed to be focusing on in the times that I could carve out for myself for grid working and gatekeeping. And it's convenient because with my then 2-year-old, and I go pick up brother at school, I just do that like, okay, we're going to leave a couple hours early, and we'd drive. So a lot of my first endeavors were her in the car sleeping. So I only had that radius of like where I could still see and hear the car. But eventually it took, like, there's no signs or like, here, come over here, roped out. I had to poke and hunt around this park to find out where it was. And it still had this quality of like, no one knows I'm here. I got a sleeping baby in the car. I'm not splunking into this cave by myself without like a headlamp and boots, and everything that I read about it talked about like spiders and dampness, and it had a creepy quality, heebie-jeebie. Like, I'm not going in there by myself feeling to it. But I would work with the site a lot, sitting at the mouth of it, sitting around the rocks around it. There's this beautiful, ginormous tree that holds the entrance together. And each time I go, I felt like I'd get a little bit more information, and the site would communicate a little bit more to me. So
I have a question for you,
yeah,
or something
please.
to point out. I posted where they can go find out, see pictures of this thing. And when I first saw the pictures that you sent when we first connected with you, I didn't realize it was that big. You could actually stand in the entrance of it.
You have to crouch in the entrance of it, which was one of my like heebie-jeebie qualities when I first going in. It's like a 2.5 foot. So I have gone in recently. I'll build up to that. One of my friends empowered me and like went in, and I was like, all right, if she's going in, I got to go too. And so I have reports from what it looks like inside now. And but yeah, you can go in. It's like a big, I think 10 people could fit in it. It's that big.
So when you crouch down and you go through the entrance, it then opens up into a room where 10 people could sit down?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
What did you feel when you got inside of it?
So, like I was in the womb of creation. And it was really deep and just really powerful.
Did you feel other beings around you? Like when you have a sacred spot like that, the energy of the people before you stays there because time doesn't exist. Now, did you feel that?
I have felt that, so I'm going to back up just a tiny bit, because I felt that anytime I would go to this park. When I was talking about, I would talk more and more to the guardians. Like, for sure, the layers of people that worked with it. And to me, I'm not an archaeologist, and not that I don't care who built it, but I just more would rather honor what they built it for. You know what I mean? Like that. Like I would just talk vibrationally to the guardians of the site and the builders of the site. So this is what I've done a lot this spring. I would just go and sit and listen, and the trees and the, you know, the birds and like the land there would talk to me about things. And when I was reading a bunch of stuff, they would talk. So there's this hill that's about a mile away. It's called Pratt Hill, and this chamber is aligned to. Now all the woods has grown up, but at the time, and they say that the natives used to burn land, like purposeful burn, so they could have these trails to go through. You know, the forest is really dense up here. So I think it was either clear or you could see this from inside the chamber. You can see the top of this hill. So this team of archaeologists, both in the 50s, and then the second set of people went in the late 70s, like 81. You could see the top of this hill. So they said, if this is an astronomical alignment site, there should be stone cairns at the top of this hill. Let's go find them. I know I'm not exactly answering your question, but I will. So they went up to the top of this Pratt Hill and found 9 different stacks of stones. So they're saying, because it definitely faces west, and it's definitely set to the sunset, and you can see the alignment. You know, mostly I see trees and scrub, but if you go up to the top, you can see where the sunset's going to be. So they're like, okay, well, if we want to prove this is an astronomical calendar, we have to figure out what all these other rocks are for, you know? So there's one that's where the summer solstice sets, and that's part of archaeoastronomy, is that because of the precession of the equinoxes, where the sun sets exactly on the horizon is not the same, you know, it changes about 7 degrees every year in this, like, 12,000 year cycle. It comes back and forth. So that's how they use that knowledge to date when a lot of these sites might have been aligned and built, you know, including Stonehenge and the pyramids in Egypt, and like, that's one of the methods they use to date them. So these other stone stacks on the hill, they figured out it's when the Pleiades set. And there's one for Alcyone, one for Electra. There's like each of this, like it was very precise. And in sitting in meditation at the in communication at the chamber, and then a lot would come to me at night in dreams, and I would ask the guardians of the site like that I wanted to reawaken the site and honor what it was built for and use it in a way that would honor that and that we could get information from now to work with the earth grids. And I had this dream so I work with Andara crystals, and I had seen one that was called the Pleiadian Sunset, like back in the fall. And so a good friend of ours, her name is Dana, she has a Andara crystal shop, Elemental Ascension, and I contacted her and said, do you have any Pleiadian sunset crystals? Like, I knew I was supposed to use some Andara crystals to help me unlock, I don't call it the secrets of the chamber, but like the information from there. And in our conversation, she's like such a great resource. She found a bunch of rocks for me, and I was just going to buy 1 or 2. And then this whole team of 7, like the 7 sisters, like kind of spoke to her and came together. She's like, I can't ship you 2. You're getting these 7. I was like, okay, thanks, sister. And so I knew that I was supposed to make a Pleiadian crystal grid to like unlock some of these Pleiadian codes or reawaken, whatever word we should use. So basically the guardians of the site told me how to use the site this spring. So that doesn't really answer your question, but like it's such a layered story. My husband was like, you're going to talk for 2 hours? I'm like, yeah, that might barely get me. I could barely tell the story in 2 hours. There's so many layers of it. But I'm going to go back to March, if that's okay, because there's a light worker. His name is Rick Jewers. He lives in Canada, and he works through Facebook a lot, and he calls out. This is one of the things I wanted to talk to both you and Nancy and Stephanie and Katie Indicrow and I were like, we got to talk to the Shungite ladies to get more information about this. But Rick sent out a call. It was like late at night on Facebook that there was some mind control technologies working, and he identified 4 places: Texas, Vancouver, Washington, D.C. I forget what the 4th one was because I wasn't working that. And I don't always answer his calls, but this one was like, you got to do this. And he was instructing people on how to take down like mind control technologies. And they always appeared to me as the cell phone towers and like overlays on the cell phone towers. And I know you ladies work with a lot with that, with the Shungite and the 4G and the 5G. So one of the blockages for this site is the alignment. There's a cell phone tower placed basically right where those rock stacks have been. And in ancient times, obviously that tower wasn't there. And it felt to me, I was just driving. I think I dropped my son off at school. Maybe I was going to like get coffee or go grocery shopping. And I just drove by Pratt Hill. And I got this like into my temples and into my brain. And it just had this, I was like, oh, that's one of those sites that Rick was talking about. And I didn't even really know what it meant or what to do about it. So I private messaged him asking like, could you check? Do you think that's one of those things? And he said, if you think it is, and you disable it with your mind. I was like, oh, okay. So not knowing exactly what that meant, I just started to work on that. And in this time, I was also doing another round. So in the Indicro Academy, once you, quote unquote, graduate from like the level 1 grid working and then do a more intermediate advanced grid working, Katie has private training available, which I've done several rounds of. So you start a private training and you get to design it for yourself and you pick a thing to work on. So this was right around that time when I started another round of private training with her. And I said, I need your help. I want to work on Pratt Hill. So I sent her a picture of the hill that I had taken. And she agreed that there was some sort of like blockage or, you know, she's like, you don't want to spend your whole summer doing this because it's hard work. You know, you should do other fun things too. But working that tower has been part of my spring work. And
okay, can I just ask you a couple questions here?
Yeah, please.
First off, so you didn't understand much about EMF and the Wi-Fi and the towers. I mean, you were kind of a novice at it when you picked up that there was something, let's put in quotes, evil associated with the system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, did you feel that it was something that was a 3D electromagnetic field, or did you feel that there was some kind of, let's say, sentient entity behind it?
What a fascinating, fabulous question. I'd say yes and yes. I don't know that, like, I don't dabble much. I don't spend a lot of my attention particles on that whole, like, fighting the dark side thing. I just really focus on building the light. So I'm not saying that those don't exist, and I know that that's
well, I
true,
think that you're just like me. It's like, oh, no, it's not in my reality. But
yeah, exactly.
There's too many people that are accepting it into their reality. So this is getting more and more. I mean, I'm telling you, this thing is trending. This concept that the electromagnetic grid has got entities in it, and where we're talking about electromagnetic fields and, 3D quantum physics and neurology kind of concepts, okay? All of a sudden now there's entities riding the electric system and the Wi-Fi system, and so they're putting more and more energy into this.
Yeah, I don't play that way either, Nancy. I'm not interested in
okay,
that.
But we're getting sucked into their reality. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, we're not. Well, some people, but you and I aren't.
Well, see, okay, I'm gonna just get into this so that we can kind of like work it. Just think about it as we go through this process. Please. Okay, is that all right? My reality, the first rule of cosmic reality is what you think it is. The second rule is majority rules, and the third rule is there's a lot of others, but the third rule is that anybody in charge of a given reality tries to keep everybody else ignorant of rule 1 and 2. And I'm in discussing this over years now. I focus on 1 and I focus on 3, but I really sort of don't give enough emphasis to 2. And 2 is where you're talking in terms of, okay, but you have to agree with certain realities because of the energetic energy sourcing that reality. Okay, so in other words, yes, I have my reality, you have your reality, and we probably agree on a tremendous amount of things. Okay, so our two realities merge, and we got a little more solid reality. And then other people come in and go, oh yeah, we agree with you, Julie and Nancy. That sounds like a good idea. So it just keeps building. Okay? What happens is that all of a sudden somebody decides there's entities riding the electric lines. Okay? Now, if they can convince everybody else of that, then our reality begins to get weaker because we don't think that's necessarily has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I just sort of want to put that out so that because it's trending. I can't tell you how I'm the only time I ever heard of entities riding the electric system was back 2014, I think it was, regarding this AI kind of sentient called the black goo, and a TV program where these kids were being talked to by imaginary friend who would convince them to do some really bad things. And it turned out in the progression of the series that it was an entity from outside of Earth that was riding the electric lines. And it was really very well done and very spooky. And they canceled it.
Huh.
They don't like you to know this stuff. But that was the only other time. And yet in this last week, I've had 3 different occasions to confront that same thing.
Huh. So it's up.
Still, yes. Let's say 10 days, okay? And it's 4. Or maybe more. But it's key. I keep getting hit with this. And so I find it very interesting that you detected a feeling of a sentient entity in that something that explain it to me, please.
Yeah, thank you for making me explain it, because I don't know that I totally understand it myself. It was just I was driving by and I got this it was almost like this beam of something, and that sounds too sci-fi, but beam going into my left temple. And it was like a scattering of my own thoughts. It just hit me in the temple. When I encounter them, and not every cell phone tower has it, because I've spent, in my playful, you have to keep it playful. So you remember Kids in the Hall? You remember that? I'm crushing your head. Your head is flat. Where you take something on the horizon and you put your index finger and thumb together. Did that? Maybe we're a different generation. But anyway, I was just how am I going to? So, Rick's very great but very cryptic advice. So disable it with your mind. I'm oh, okay. How do you do that? So I tried all these different, I'll wrap it with platinum ray. I'll put it, I've put a fullerene around it. I do a lot of putting sacred geometry around things. I'm a big sacred geometry fan. Energetic, your girl. I can just say that and you ladies know what I'm talking about, right? You just throw up a sphere around it, or throw up a square, or throw up a
yes, we do this all the time. Yep.
And see if that would work. And then I just had the most playful. I'm I'm crushing your head. And but I don't think that I didn't connect with anything off planet or this or that. I could also feel at the top of that hill that because it was a power spot, it had been misused. Maybe Native Americans were slaughtered there in the King Philip War. Maybe, maybe there's some sacrifice stuff that happened with other different people. Other humans have gone and used some of these sites in an unsavory way. And that residue, you're asking me who was in the chamber or what did you feel? Which I really want to get to that story because that was really fun. But that there's the residue, or when someone goes and uses one of these sites in a dark arts kind of way, that residue lingers there too. So when you go to these sites, I've noticed for myself, there's layer after layer after layer. When I went in June to the Mystery Hill, the America Stonehenge site, it took me a half an hour to be able to stand up and get out of my car because it was just swirling, and there was just so much. It was used as a stop in the Underground Railroad. It had, natives had used it, colonials had used it, maybe some Knights Templar came in and used it. It was just layer after layer. It was part of that, some of it, I feel a lot of the sites might have these stuck overlays over them, and just by light workers like us going to them and talking and listening and vibing and doing it differently, it's a way to reclaim the site or to release it from. So that's more of what I felt with that tower. Maybe the tower was there.
I agree. I agree with you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Totally,
Yes.
We all feel those ways, and it makes sense about this trending subject because it's another way to take people's power away instead of them connecting into it, getting rid of it with their mind, throwing up a fullerene, using your shungite, whatever you have to do. They'd rather go out and battle an entity that's not there. So, yes, it all makes sense.
You know what I think is happening? I think you're absolutely correct, because anytime you have a sacred site, and these sacred sites are not designated because some human being said, I want a sacred site here, it's an energetic feeling that people feel when they get there. This feels sacred. It's almost like stepping into some kind of a vortexy thing. Nothing seems quite perfectly right, and there seems to be a border to it. If you're extremely sensitive, you can feel these things. So this is something that is natural within the construct of the planet. When you have a lot of people there, especially if you do get to a point of sacrifice and all this other stuff, and you're building up that kind of energy, it sticks there. Mm-hmm. It just is there. Now, if you take and you put up an electromagnetic antenna, all right, what I think is happening, and because most of these things are on high ground, that's where they want the antenna system.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think maybe what's happening is that when you put the antenna system up and you start running all this electromagnetic energy through it, and then on top of that Wi-Fi, okay, let's not even get into 5G, but Wi-Fi, okay?
Yeah.
What happens is that energy that was stuck and dormant is now got an energy field that it can play with. You know how in hauntings and ghost hauntings, okay, if you look at study it, you're going to find out that most of the actual apparitions coming through and being seen or felt or smelt or any of that, not the 3D, there is there's a storm in the area. That's why dark and windy night. Because there's so much electromagnetic static in the energy field around us, the 3D. And when that happens, you have it's almost like it's kind of weird, but this field allows ectoplasm from the
etheric.
It's a
conduit.
It's a conduit. It kind of
yes.
intensifies, enhances, causes, whatever. Okay? So an electromagnetic tower would do the same thing.
You're on it, Nancy. That's spot on, in my opinion.
And spot on, because going back to the beehive chamber, and you'll tell the story about the beehive cluster and the geek out on the astrology and astronomy of it, but this cluster was associated with the pineal gland. And these beehive chambers were actually used in Ireland and other places for vocal toning.
That's my surmise. Yes.
Right.
You might not read that in books, but this is what's been revealed to me. Like when I was doing a lot of research about the beehive chambers, that group that I was involved in the Katie's Indie Crow Academy, we, just energetically, without empirical research, connected it to a site in Ireland, Skellig Michael, made famous by The Last Jedi. And Luke Skywalker, that place where he was, connects to this beehive chamber here in Upton energetically. And because it's the beehive, there were beehives. So there's this whole sect of Irish monks. St. Brendan is one of the leaders that built these. And then I was reading one thing about it. I was like, oh, I've investigated all I can do here in New England. Let me investigate the Irish side. And when I was reading this website, it just talked about how these chambers, monks, when I said the 10 people, Nancy, it said 10 to 12 monks could stand in a circle, shoulder to shoulder. And I didn't read this part, but to me, I was like, oh, they were chanting. They were vocal toning. That's what these things are.
Well, I'm listening to you do this, and I'm going like, duh. How the hell did we miss this? Because, sound, the Russians know that sound will change the DNA of human beings. They scientifically know this, all right? And everybody's walking around, and there's these empty chambers. Where's the dead people? Where's the dead people? They never were intended for dead people. They were intended to be chambers of sound and healing and vortexing into different dimensions. Oh my goodness.
So I went get to Stephanie's point. Are you
go?
So I've got, I get the call, like, when am I supposed to go there? I don't go every day, but I go, at least every week, sometimes a couple times a week, sometimes every day when it calls me in. It was June 18th, I remember, and I was like, okay, I got to go. I'm blowing off, like, whatever stuff I was supposed to do here at work, like website updates or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm going to go to the chamber. And I was there. So in June, when I was reading all these books about where, like, what it was aligned to, and I was like, well, I can't. One of the cool things of this team in the late 70s, one of them was a photographer. So he went to the top of Pratt Hill, and he stood with his flash bulb, and they stood in the chamber, and they could see, like, that's how they sort of proved, one of the ways they proved. But I was like, wait a minute. I've got an iPhone in my pocket. It has a compass app. I've got this star finder app. I'm like, modern archaeoastronomy, I can just go stand at the front of the chamber and use my phone and figure out these things that they had to pace out by, and use tridents and all that stuff. So I got really excited. That was around the same time as the Palladian crystal grid. This was all right before solstice, because I knew that this was my site to work for summer solstice this year. And I knew I was supposed to do it not on the exact solstice, but a few days before for a few reasons. So I went there on June 18th, 19th, I think both, maybe the 17th too. And I stood in this, I use Sky Safari, and you just stand and you, like, hold it up to the sky and you hit compass app and it, like, tells you what's up there, even in daylight, so you can see what's there. But at night, I use it a bunch. And because you always look up and you're like, what exactly am I looking at? Which planet is that? Is that Saturn? It looks a little reddish. So I got this app a year ago to help me with nighttime viewing. But I used it, but you can stand there and you can fast forward. Speaking of time portals, there's a fast forward thing. So I could fast forward to June 21st on June 18th and see what was going to rise and set. It's like modern day is so cool. We can use this technology for good. So I was there. I did a whole bunch of alignments on June 19th at sunset. I was there most of the day that day. I set up the crystal grid. I wanted to see what the Pleiades had to do with the site, and I thought the crystals would help me, and they did. And there's also a bench and a water area that's not right at the chamber, because I can't spend tons of time right there. It's really intense. I go, like, adjacent to it. But from the center of the entrance of the chamber, when I looked in the distance at summer solstice, the sun was setting, but the Pleiades, the 3 belt stars of Orion, and Sirius were all setting on the exact horizon. And I was like, whoa. There's more to the site than. So one of the things that I've read about is that maybe these stone chambers, like, why is there a 12-foot, 14-foot tunnel and people can stay in it and it's set? If you're in this darkened chamber, it works like a telescope. It dilates the human pupil so much that you can see things at twilight that maybe you can't see when you're standing out on a field. So I was like, maybe this was set for the Pleiades, so that they could see things at twilight that my phone showed me, but I never would have known that if I didn't have this app. You can't see it. But maybe the chamber was for that. That's one of my theories. But it still didn't tell me, like, when the Pleiades, so there's this whole concept of the heliacal setting of planets where when things conjunct the sun, that celestial body gets close enough to the sun that we can't see it anymore because it's just lost in the sun's glare. And there's a thing about when the celestial body, be it another planet or a star, moves out of that sphere of influence. It has to be like, 10 to 30 degrees, depending how bright the object is, away from the sun when we can see it at night or early morning. You know about that? So that's a little, I don't want to wax too astronomical if people don't want to, but more go back to the chamber. So
just to make it,
go ahead.
To make it clear, I just want everybody to know that this is a specific star cluster, and it's in the Cancer constellation.
I'll get back to the sun.
If you want to talk about that.
I'll go right to that. So I did all this solstice stuff. It was great. It was awesome. I'll talk more about that some other time. on July 18th, I got called there again. And I was like, okay, what am I supposed to pay attention to? You want me here. And I used the phone again. And I looked up, and the sun was sitting right next to the beehive cluster. And I was like, beehive cluster? I know I had noticed it last summer, but it went dormant again to my awareness, I was like, beehive cluster. And it was just, I was like, when? So I fast forwarded with the app again. And I saw that the beehive cluster and the sun were going to be together on July 27th. Now, July 27th was also that supermoon eclipse. Was it Mars conjuncting? It was like
Mars conjunct.
It was already an epic day, and I was like, "Whoa, you're kidding me that the beehive cluster is conjuncting the sun on this same day?" I was like, "Clearly, I have to go back." So I got what I was calling marching orders from either the guardians of the site or my guides or whatever. I was like, "You need to get in that chamber on the 27th, and you need to vocal tone. That is your job." And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go in." And I was like, "Okay," I was gearing myself up to it. That was a Friday. On Wednesday night, so I told you I've been working this Pratt Hill, and I found eventually this old fire road that probably they used to build the cell phone tower, but I hadn't gone up on foot because it didn't feel right or safe or good for me to do that. I knew that I had to go to the chamber and go in and tone on the 27th. That was a Friday. On Wednesday night at like 3 a.m, many miles down the road, I woke up at 3 a.m, not knowing why, but a tornado blew through Upton, the town that it's in, and took down a whole bunch of stuff. It was like a small tornado. When I drove by on Thursday morning, it went exactly on the path that I was supposed to walk up. Not like a foot over here, not a foot over there. This tornado completely cleared the path to the cell phone tower. I was like, whoa, okay. Thanks, Mother Nature. Good job. So it's clear. I still haven't gone on foot. We were on family vacation for a few weeks. I probably would have by now, but it's on my list of things to do real soon. So I was like, okay,
that is really insane. I just want to get this clear in my head. The very path up the hill towards the cell tower that you needed to get to the cell tower, a tornado came through and cleared it?
Yes. Like only that, like I still like I'm flabbergasted. I was Facebook messaging Katie. I was like, "Are you ever kidding me? Are we allowed to swear on your radio show? You keep it clean."
No, you're fine. You're fine.
We're
well, no, don't do it because these go on YouTube. We're fine, but YouTube might not be.
But effing's okay, right?
Effing's fine.
I was like, I can't. I just couldn't even believe it. In a good way, but I was like, okay. So when you were talking about earlier, Nancy, when you were talking about all that stuff that you were talking about with the towers, I was like, yeah. So I was to myself, I'm like, is that a sign? Should I still keep on with the mission? And so I went there, and some of my friends, my teammate Bianca was like, kind of coached me into it. And I don't, she was like, maybe you're just like resistant. All the things I read about it talked about like a couple feet of standing water and tons of spiders. And I was trying to get, like, my husband was not interested in going with me. And I was like, I should probably just get my big girl panties on and just go in by myself. And I was like, I just didn't feel quite right about it. So anyway, I went on the 27th and I put some of the toning. I was like, you know what? I don't have to freak myself out. I can do what's in my, I can tone into the chamber and get my job done. So I stood at the mouth of it and did all this vocal toning in, and it was really beautiful. But what I got back from the chamber was, it's time, you need to start talking about this. Because I've been doing all this work, like, in relative, not secret, but in privacy, and I felt like my job was to keep the chamber protected, like I was a guardian of it in somehow. But it clearly told me that I needed to open up my mouth and start talking to people, not just toning about it. So that afternoon, I had meetings at my son's school. They were doing a play, a theater camp, and he put on a play, so there was a bunch of people there. And I just started talking about it. And one of my friends there, her sister used to own the house that's right above it. She's been in the chamber tons of times. She's like, come on, I'll bring you. So the next morning, we went in together. And because she was just like, I had Crocs on. I was planning on wearing boots, like porous shoes. But I was like, all right, we're going in. And we went in, and she does sound healing too, and she does vocal toning. My friend Genevieve, and we went into the chamber, and it was like really magical and mystical and like deep and wet and earthy. And there was a frog sitting on there's tons of ginormous spiders, like orb spiders, and we were in there for a while, and we were like, then we shut off the lights, our cell phone. I didn't even have a flashlight with me. I just had my cell phone light, and we started toning. And the chamber toned this like loudest noise we've ever heard. Yeah, maybe it was the frog. It probably was. Or maybe it was the chamber itself. We were like hightailed it out of there like squealing schoolgirls. We're like, ah! Running out the front.
So you finally get in here, you start the toning, and you scared yourselves right out of it?
Well, it was like,
oh my God.
The earth, Balrog was like waking. It was quite the sound. And we got out there, we were like hearts panting. We were like, okay, like that was good. I think we did something. I think we woke it up or something happened. That
is such a typical reaction to people. No matter how accustomed you are to magic, sometimes it just kind of freaks you out. I love this story. Wow.
It was, that day was, I'm so grateful we're sharing this a month later, because that day was an intense day. We had that lunar eclipse, full moon, Mars, Earth, Sun alignment. The Shungite bees kept swarming, and it was an intense day. And that day I had this like cluster headache, and the bees kept coming to me, and I'm like, what do you want? What is going on? Right. And when you posted that, I read it and I listened to the toning, and automatically it's like my whole vibrational frequency was in alignment. Then I went over to my neighbor and I told her the story. She said, well, of course, don't you remember that Edgar Cayce said that sound would be the medicine of healing? And I can't believe you didn't know about the beehive cluster in Cancer, because Edgar Cayce talks about it. And when that is out, we have these cluster headaches. And I'm like, really? What? And all this information just started coming. I was like, I never heard that one. And, I'm a Cancer, and I've never heard of this star cluster. And like you said, it went off on an amazing day. And in galactic terms, it's literally one of our neighbors. It's in the Orion spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy, like closest star nebula neighbor. Come on.
And so where it sits on, if you look at the crab, the outline of the crab constellation, it sits in the crab forehead. And this came to me. So when I went on the 27th that day and I did the toning into it, that's like the feedback that I got about the beehive. And I was like, oh, and then I researched a bit about the beehive cluster. And just one person had said about the pineal, and it was like what you said, that ding, ding, ding. And I was like, oh, and then I realized I was sort of assuaging myself that like, it's okay if I didn't go in. I was like, I walk around with a beehive on my skull. My skull is a beehive. I can tone. Yeah. So I did all this like toning to my own pineal, and I don't know, I came prepared. Like if we want to do some of it today on the show, I'm glad to do a little vocal toning too. But it was very like in through the top of the skull and out through the forehead, like this L-shaped line of light. I've taught this meditation for, I've been yoga meditation teaching for 20-something years, but I've taught that a bunch to people to clear the pineal. But I was like, oh, this is what these chambers were to awaken everyone's pineal. And that, like, of course, whatever, doesn't matter what Wi-Fi signal's coming at you. If your pineal is crystal clear, you can see through all that. You can just go right through. It clears it all out.
And that's what we use Shungite for, to make the pineal clear. We're at the top of the hour, so we're going to take a break. And this is absolutely fascinating. We're breaking into new thought here. I love it. Going to put you guys on mute. And, okay, here we go. Okay, that was Jessica Elisari, Water. And you are listening to the Shungite Radio Show. It is August 28th, 2018. My name's Nancy Hopkins. With me is Stephanie Dietz and Julie Roberts, who is just really amazing me. How do you feel about, where do you want to go now? Do you want to do some toning and now, or do you want to wait a little bit, or how are you feeling, girl? Oh, wait a minute, I got to unmute you. There you go, now you can talk.
I said, I'm feeling awesome. This is so fun. You ladies are fabulous. That song brought tears to my eyes. It was so beautiful. Stephanie sent me, so I want to hear a little more from Stephanie about what she heard about the beehive cluster, if she has more. But she was so sweet and sent for me to give to the chamber a packet of Shungite stones and some honey. And then I have a body worker energy aligner that I go to monthly. And when I was on her table, she's like, "You're doing so much pineal stuff." This is a few days later. And she said, I was telling her about a little, and separately she said, "I think you need to bring a gift of honey to the chamber." And I was like, "I know, I have this one on the way to me." So these stones, the Shungite.
That's awesome.
I got it like a day or two before we did a vacation at the beach at the seashore at Cape Cod. And the Shungite came with us because I didn't get a chance to bring it to the chamber, and I have it here. But it was like it wanted to come to the ocean and then go to the chamber. So
cool, yeah. Nancy, Julie got Shungite from us back in April, and it was one of those weird stories because it got delivered to the house and it went missing. And she called me and she's like, "Can we track the package? It's not here." And we tracked it, and I said, "It's been delivered." And what was it, like a week or two later, it just popped up on your husband's desk?
Well, yeah, it was in like a pile of, but luckily he didn't throw it away, but but you sweetly had sent me a second one, which is great because I have it here at, I was like, oh great, I have I have a healing center that needs Shungite too.
So tell us the reason, it was sent to you, the bees, because we know the work that you're doing. So tell us how you feel about the honey and what work you've been doing with it.
Well, I just opened it at this break, and I just put a little on my tongue for the first time just now. So I haven't done anything, with the Shungite or with this packet you sweetly sent me. I felt like it was for the chamber, and I just had it, and I just was supposed to sit with it until it was time to make the offering. And then, of course, we were away. But then it came into my pack. I was like, I want to come to the ocean with you. So, and I set up like a 2-dimensional version of a fullerene around me to sit to be on the show with you, ladies. So I'm surrounded in Shungite right now, the ones you sent me. And but I'm very new to Shungite, and you had my friend and mentor Katie DeCrow on your show in April, and she was like, we should all get part of this Shungite network because it's going to help our work. And I was like, okay. And I felt it too, but I feel like a novice with the Shungite for sure. But as soon as I put the sticker on my phone and I put it on my son's Kindle that he, reads stuff on, and I could feel, and I recently got I had like an old throwback phone, but I got a newer phone recently and switched it over, and I used it without the sticker, and then I used it with the sticker, and I was like, oh, thank you so much for having these products.
You're welcome. Shungite is working with the pineal gland too, so I'm sure you know that.
I don't think I do. It's been an interesting, do you find this with other people, or how it's revealing itself to me? It's in layers and pieces and parts. It's probably whatever I can totally take in at a time. I am, of course, sensitive to energy and different things, but as much as I sit with it, I have chunks in my pocket around the time, I just still feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what its power is.
And that's its magic. For people like you who have a massive amount of experience working with energies, Shungite will take you to the next level. Because everything that you've seen done with crystals, minerals, even healing modalities, it's contained within the Shungite. All the energy. Every mineral that's ever been, ever will be, the energy's there in the Shungite. Now, that's because of it's not just the fullerenes, but we talk about the fullerenes because that's where that's where the power source is in Shungite. And I said this from the minute I met it, you only need one fullerene, So you got the fullerene, and the fullerene opens the door to the quantum world. And when you've opened that door, then it enhances manifestation, it enhances healing, and because it is like the ultimate power source, you are able to, through the shungite, create an energy field that's being propelled by a molecule that's rotating 2 billion times a second. So that power energy field is, if you learn how to work with it, beyond what it naturally does, but as you as a healer, if you begin to use it and harness it and use it to enhance your own powers, and that's the next level of learning what I call enerology. Do you have specific questions about the shungite?
A lot just came through as you were speaking, and it's great. Do I have a specific question?
Well, let me give you a little back.
Yeah,
let me give you a little more, and just break in and ask me if you get a question, or it pops in. Ask me, because somebody else will have it too. It's created in the cosmos, the interstellar world out there. And it was brought to Earth, and I believe that it contained all of the fundamental energies that you need to create 3D life. And it came in the form of like a meteorite and hit this area that used to be Finland, so it's right on the Finnish-Russian area. And it's 1,000 kilometers of, where it hit. And it goes down over 400 feet. So you're not going to run out of shungite very soon, right? And it's all contained in this one area. The first vestiges of life is traced back to that very area. The earliest signs of, the amoebas and the vegetation and all of the stuff that starts everything else is found right there. So this came about 2 million, they don't know, 2 million to 4 million years ago, that this happened. So what it does is that I think Gaia said, look, I want to go another level of consciousness of making life, because Gaia is the creator God. Yes, I believe in a source field God that created Gaia. Somebody accused us of not believing in God, or me not believing in God. I believe in many gods. If you don't have the concept that your source God can create other gods, well, you're limiting your own source God, whatever that source God happens to be called. So anyway, I don't. Gaia is a consciousness, a creator consciousness, a guy called creator God, that brings this thing in to bring life. Now, so then it sits there for all this time, and yes, the locals knew it, and yes, it took on magical proportions, and sometimes, but the vast majority of human beings were totally ignorant of it. Until now. And now it's a worldwide phenomenon, because it proves that it eliminates toxins. They're using it in Fukushima area to clear the radiation out of the water. They are using it in healing modalities all over the planet. And they're using it to protect against radiation from Wi-Fi and electromagnetic. It's all based on that concept of opening up the door to the quantum with a field that is compatible with the energetic life. And anything that's toxic has an energy field that rotates the opposite way. So when it hits the powerful quantum charge shungite field, the toxins, if it's electromagnetic, simply switch. When they switch, it creates a situation where the 3D equipment is actually working more efficiently. That's why when you use shungite products, you see your electric bill drop, or if it's in your car, you're probably going to see gas mileage increase.
It's electron spin.
It's that's all it is. That's all it is. No big thing here. And so when you have a toxin, okay, like a molecular toxin, when it hits the field, it wants to spin the other way, but because it's got a molecular construction, it can't make that spin. And so what happens is that it disintegrates into atoms. it loses its molecular cohesion in the attempt to recalibrate the spin. So you don't have shungite where they're finding, like in carbon, you have to change it out because it's been absorbing all these yucky things. And pretty soon that carbon stuff is worse than whatever is in the water. But in the case of shungite, they've never seen that. They have they've waited for it. When is it going to, they never see it absorbing anything. You know how carbon is going to stink, eventually stink? Never happens with shungite. You don't have to change it. You don't have to charge it from the sun. It's being charged by the quantum. And so that's why some of our products are, like incomprehensible to people as far as how they work. But do you care how they work? Can you explain to me how your television works? If that's what's holding you back from the experience of shungite, let go of it. Just say, hey, it works. Do you know how to make your car? Are you a mechanic? Can you fix the car? No, you just want to drive it. Drive shungite. Now, the other thing that shungite is that every single particle of shungite, a speck of powder, is attached to the field in Russia. When you know this, Katie, that there's a weave of trees, a weave of bees, a weave of humanity. It's these energy weaves. We can talk about them from a lot of different angles, but there is a shungite weave. And as the shungite has spread around the world, I've watched this for 4 years. See, it was very popular in Russia. Got very popular in Europe and in Indonesia. A few other odd places, but South America, North America, Canada. Canada had finally Shungite 1 got into Canada, and they started making rumble. And then I got involved in it because of a weird story. And so because we've got the radio, we started making a big rumble. All right? It just has gone all around the planet. So now the whole planet has got shungite somewhere.
Wow.
And it's all tied together. And the thing about shungite is that you cannot do anything that is negative. The reason being, the only time it turns on, in quotes, is when it feels the frequency of a resonating heart that is a pure heart. Can you understand that?
Yeah.
Because it's so powerful. Now we're getting a lot of people, well, not a lot, but a few, and they're always very vocal. So you think, my God, there must be a crowd. No, there's 2 people yelling at you. That are talking in terms of it being black magic and, negative and evil and, no. It can never turn on to do anything until it feels a resonating, pure heart.
You know what else it's going to be? It is already, but I can see it being really good for it. The other thing that's quote-unquote up for a lot of people right now is this whole geomagnetic storm, coronal mass ejection, gamma rays, cosmic rays. And as you talk, I'm like, the shungite, we're already in this net of, I don't say protection, but that that's just energy that we can use and harness. There's a lot of fear going around in the communities about that stuff. But shungite works with that.
Absolutely. All of what they're fearful of. Every single thing the chemtrails, the pollution of the water, all of it can be mitigated by the shungite field. But you have to work with the shungite field. That's why I tell people, yes, get our shungite. And get our shungite. You can get shungite any place. If you get our shungite, you're part of another quantum entanglement. But you don't even have to get our shungite. All you have to do is open up to the shungite field that's worldwide. And one of the things that talking about bees and all that, in 2017, Derek began the Shungite Beehive Project, okay? We began to have hope for the bees. The bees were doing extremely well. They went from 50,000 to 1 million in 11 weeks. No death, no mites, no nothing, okay? So everybody that was involved in understanding this began to feed their energy into this phenomena. And the last year, 2017, in that time frame where he was doing this, where we were all energetically putting out our thoughts and, yeah, we're going to do this, there actually was a slowing in the decrease of the bees. At least in some areas. I haven't confirmed it was worldwide, but it was not as drastic. It's still bad, but it was not as drastic. And
because I have several people in my community that might be listening to this that are bee people or beekeepers. Do you feed them the Shungite water, or do you put it around the hive, or how do you use it?
Oh, this is what's so amazing about it. All you do is you get 3 nuggets. Now, 3 is a geometric, sacred geometry kind of concept. So, but 3 nuggets, you get cohesion. So you get the 3 nuggets, you put it in the doorway. That's it. What happened was when Derek did this, the bees began to walk over the Shungite pile, leaving and entering back into the hive. We've got film where there's a 18-inch doorway. The 3 nuggets are on the far right, and everybody's over at the far right. Nobody's anywhere else in the opening. When he got to the end of the season, and they were winterizing, he found that the Shungite nuggets had actually been rubbed up against enough so that they were like little mountains. They had actually sculpted it as they went back and forth. Now, what they're doing is they're picking up particles of Shungite. Like I say, all you need is a particle. So when they fly, they're flying with a Shungite field around them. They're not getting hit by the electromagnetic and Wi-Fi signals, the frequencies. They're getting hit, but it's attenuating. So when they get back to the hive and they rub up against it, they're bringing that particle into the hive. So the hive becomes a Shungite environment, teeny little particle at a time. And that also gets into the honey. So the honey that you have there from Shungite bees is actually imbued with Shungite energy.
Wow. So do you have an intuitive, so I'm going to go sometime this week and bring this Shungite to this beehive chamber, and I was planning on letting the chamber tell me where to put it and how, but do you have any suggestions for me or an intuition about where?
Yeah. Take 3 nuggets. They could be small. It's all you need is the 3. And I want you to coat each one of those with the honey.
Okay.
All right. Now, what's going to happen is that the Shungite is going to be imbued with the honey energy. It's going to intensify the honey energy, and it's never going to leave the chamber. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just put the 3 so they're touching each other.
Not even.
Not even. Okay.
You like them close. They don't have to touch, but you like them within 4 inches of each other.
Okay.
So just, drop them and where they sit, actually, you'll feel it. You can position them.
Yeah.
I call it locking in. You're messing with the stones, and all of a sudden you hear this little click, and everything locks in energetically. Mm-hmm. That's all you have to do. Talk to the stones. But if you just and of course use your intent, because the thing about Shungite is that it loves to play with energy fields, and one of the most powerful energy fields in the universe is human thought. So, you have to be, and I know I'm not talking so much to you as to others, is that you have to get into what you would call a, quote, meditative state, and work with the stone and the energies. Don't try to imbue your own thought process into what's happening. You're dealing with the most powerful, I think it's the most powerful energetic force I've ever encountered. You don't have to try to program it. All you want to do is work with it. And send it love and gratitude and appreciation, and think of the mother load that's out there and the weave around you, and just have fun.
I'm going to bring some up to the top of Pratt Hill, too. My tornado path.
Yes. You can't get to the tower. You can only get up there.
No, I think I can. I was just picturing myself putting some at the bottom of it, but we'll see if I can. I think I'm sure. Like they have to drive to maintain it, so I'm sure there's some road somewhere that I can get to it.
Yeah, you can use that. See, we've got magnets that if you put them on the tower will attenuate.
Oh.
But we're not in this case. We're not exactly dealing with that. What we're dealing with.
I just pictured a Shungite parkour fleet of people that go around the country slapping Shungite stickers on water towers and cell phone towers.
Yeah, it was done. It was done a number of years, about decades ago with orgonite. Yes, okay. and Shungite's pure. You just throw it at it. But the thing of it is that we're dealing with something a little different here on this Pratt Hill. It's not just the electromagnetic waves. It's whatever energy is there.
Right.
And I highly recommend that you try to release the energy.
Yes.
I'm trying to pick up something. I'm seeing the hill. I'm seeing the. No, they're not happy with this. What it's doing is it's intensifying any kind of sacrifice or suffering that was done there, and that's kind of intensifying negative energy, so that's the manifestation that's happening. Versus a really truly sacred spot that you could put a cell tower on, you'd probably beam love and joy all through the area.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Put the Shungite up there because you can't do evil with Shungite.
Right. We've got a little more clearing work to do.
Yeah.
Do I haven't gone up yet?
Yeah. No, I do. But you see, you don't necessarily remember we're etheric beings. What we like to do, okay, is that because we can't get to every 3D place there is in the world, we like to work with the etheric and make etheric doubles. So nice. We just make energetic doubles and put them wherever we want them to be, without interaction at the 3D. Well, it interacts etherically, but,
Yeah.
And we have found this to be extraordinarily powerful. We told people to etherically double turtles because they're so expensive. And people came back and had some amazing experiences with their imaginary turtles. It's a Shungite turtle. It's a device, quotes. But they tend to have a sentience to them because people work with them. It's sort of like we're the creators of our reality. So even our imaginary friends are there because we believe in them. Now, in some cases, they do work with you whether you believe in them or not. But because like you say, there's layers and there's onion skin. It's like you rip off a layer, there's another layer. Oh my gosh, how deep is this? As deep as we are.
We've just entered somehow into I'm noticing a lot of teeth, ear, and skull. I feel like we've been having such a great conversation, but I feel like we've entered another dimension of the beehive pineal that each of us hold in our skull right at this moment. Do you feel that, Stephanie?
Yeah, I've been feeling weird things. I can't put words to it, but yes, I am.
Well, because we're stirring the pot of the collective consciousness, the super consciousness of humanity, plus all other life on this biosphere. We're turning it. Because we're talking about things that don't get talked about. We're putting information and knowledge into that collective. And it's starting to resonate. And so you get this, somebody's got a big kettle of just all this stuff and somebody's starting to stir it. Is that what you're feeling?
That's part of it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go back to something Stephanie said that's so in my wheelhouse and excitement? I was so excited that you mentioned it. about the Orion spiral arm of the galaxy. And this is one of these things that I like have in my sphere to share, and I've been trying to figure out how to write it up or share it with people. The stars, if we go back to this, there's a lot of communication that happens through star codes and light codes for me and everybody, but that I've noticed a lot in the last year or two, like all the Christmas tree cluster was talking to me around Christmas, the Pleiades are one, and so I've been investigating all the celestial bodies that are in the Orion spiral arm, and yes, the beehive is. So you were talking about that source code or the source creator, Nancy, of that almost like how Wi-Fi works, like a repeater station. So there's the center of the galaxy, but then there's the center of the universe, and that there's this like the light codes and the source codes get rebroadcast, shall we say, or redistributed through the universe at the center of the galaxy. But then what particular codes come down? If you picture a spiral with 4 different arms as our galaxy, and our particular arm, like all those, as I put this together this summer, all the ones along our Orion arm are the ones that have been talking to me the most loudly, which makes perfect sense. But Stephanie, you mentioned it. I just wanted to highlight and circle back to it about the beehive cluster. So if you just picture picture a swirling vortex of light, or the galaxy as seen from above. And then one of those arms have like all those dots of light, which are different stars and suns. And they, each one has a transmission. So Sirius is in that. The Pleiades are in that. Orion is in that. And the beehive cluster that Stephanie mentioned is the closest star cluster to our solar system. There's something about that that's important.
Right. That's what I feel. So with that being said, if you want to get into some toning, this way we can kind of now balance out all of this swirling that's going on, because I'm feeling that clustering again.
Like headache style, you mean? Or just,
yeah.
I'd be glad to. Is that cool, Nancy?
Yes, I just posted a picture of the cluster on the chat. The beehive cluster?
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that is out there if, the people, at least in chat, can focus on it if you need to have some kind of a visual. I find sometimes just visual things will draw people into, oh, that's what you're talking about, because all you're doing is giving them an anchor to remote view.
So much. So should I lead a...
Go for it. Have fun.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, so everyone who's listening, take a moment to sit yourself in a comfortable, or lay down, or get yourself comfy and cozy. Take a few deep cleansing breaths. And if you're in a situation you can do it, close your eyes. And bring your attention to your own personal core, your soul center, your seat of power. And then make a conscious connection to the core of the earth. We have a molten core, a magnetic core, and a crystalline core. A big crystal that is the center of the earth. And then connect a giant column of light from the core of the earth, coming up and engulfing your body in light, encompassing your soul center, and connect it all the way up to the sun. So if you're standing or lying, like you could be laying on a beach, bathing in sunlight. You could be standing with your arms raised up, catching the rays. So in this big column of light, you can imagine it like a light skyscraper, if you will. And your awareness acts like your elevator. which floor you want to get off on or stop on to hang out. Bring yourself to your, what so many cultures call the third eye, the pineal gland, into the center of your skull. There's a portal a few inches or between the eyes, but an inch or so above the eyebrows, right at the forehead. And there's another portal where babies have their soft spot, the fontanelle, the top of the skull. And just visualize your skull as this beehive chamber. And the forehead section is the tunnel that's situated to catch the light that comes from the sunset and from the stars. And in this beehive chamber in Upton, there is a chink in the stones at the top, and it is open air and open light. And that's when babies come into the world with that soft spot. That's like the aperture of God, goddess, some call it. So the forehead is the bring in sun codes, and the top of the skull is your transmission up and out. So you could even breathe with me in an L-shaped line of light, inhaling in through the forehead spot, letting it swirl in your inner chamber. And then as you exhale, send a big beacon of light straight up. And I'm trained in the sound healing through some of the yoga schools where we use Sanskrit language. And the Sanskrit seed sound that activates is, if you wrote it in English, it would be NG. But it's a sound where you use the tongue around the roof of your mouth, and that sound sends energy straight up. You can chant it with me, or you can just listen. It works both ways. And I'm just going to point out, to be instructive, because I know a lot of people listening to this are also energy practitioners. Like what I'm sensing right now is a lot of like resistance around the molars and the teeth and the jaw. Like we've been talking about a lot of stuff that is new to talk about in the world a little bit. So I'm going to do one now. So if everybody can like wiggle their jaw out and loosen their teeth and like move your head around or shake it out a little bit. And if you're so inclined, take your hands and sweep up across your sternum, sweep off the heart with your hands in the air, sweep around your throat, neck, jaw, just whoosh, clear out any resistance, any fear. You can stop that when you feel like it's done. can sense or feel that we're in the human eyeballs and their cavities. So soften your eyelids. Soften all the muscles that hold your eyes in place. And let the human eyes relax deep into their cavities and connect energetically back into your inner eye. Any way your body wants to move, if your necks want to move, if your eye wants to flutter. Self-integrate that experience. Now I don't want to open my eyes. How are you doing, ladies? Did that help, Stephanie?
Yes, it did. Totally feel integrated now. All the buzzing and swirling stopped. My neck feels better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I was taken on a little bit of a voyage. I'm a remote viewer, and what happened was that I think it was like this, by the third tone, I realized that I was in the beehive chamber in Upton. And what was so stunning about it was that it was resonating with you, even though you're here doing it on the radio, and I don't know that it's you're at the inside it was resonating with you. Mm-hmm. And what I got in just being there and trying to figure out what is happening, these things are all over the world, and even more than creating an etheric double of anything, the reason I think they wanted you to talk about them was because they are there for everybody to use. If you are doing toning, or even if you're not doing toning, you've never done this stuff before, just start it. Just allowing yourself to move with whatever sound comes through your body is just an amazing experience. But if you do that and you see the chamber in front of you, the chamber will resonate with you. And just, wow. I mean, I redo everything. It's just going to be a redo of everything. Do you see that?
Yeah, for sure. It does, like we all walk around with the chamber. our skulls. But yes, everything you said resonated strongly.
That was astounding when you explained that. You know, it's like, I've actually, Walt and I have worked with that same kind of technique, but I never thought about, well, I didn't understand, I'd never been introduced to the beehive chamber. But once you said that, I was like, oh, this is so neat. You know? Yeah. I meant to ask you about the opening, so there was an opening, because I thought I just sort of knew there was, but, so, because if you look at the pictures showing the inside of that chamber, you go, how did they do it? I mean, it looks to me like it should be falling down. There's no cement or anything else in it, right?
Nothing. It's an engineering marvel, for sure.
Now, see, this is in Upton, Massachusetts, which is what, maybe 20 miles from Oxford?
Right down Route 20.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm right there. I grew up right there.
Yeah.
And as a kid, well, remember, okay, I was born in 48, so during the 50s, which is, the area was much less populated. You know, there's a lot of open woods, and for whatever reason, I was well, we know what the reasons are. I was always off in the woods. Basically, should have gotten lost, never did. As a kid, you know, and I can remember coming into this one. I was visiting a friend, and I'm not sure why the friend wasn't with me, but I because I definitely was by myself, and I walked into this one area, and there was this huge flat rock, you know, like New England rocks, granite, big, huge thing, and as soon as I got there, I felt like I had just sort of like intruded, you know, and I got cautionary, and I started looking around, what's out here that, you know, but I just was like, that state that it put me in, you know, like you kind of like alert and not knowing what to look for, so your brain kind of goes empty. It was like it was filled with this whole panorama of people and ceremony, all involving this one area, this one place. And then, of course, over the years, well, I don't know, I couldn't find it again. I don't know if I could have turned it. Maybe it wasn't even there. But there are so many places in that area
Massachusetts
undiscovered.
Many.
Yeah, my brother Mark is... he's a little bit more than obsessed with Native American lore and history and culture all through that area. And he has made astounding finds. Like an archaeologist. But, you know...
Does he share those somewhere?
Say again?
Does he share them somewhere? Like,
well, no, he tries to tell the family, and they all think he's nuts. I'm the only one that goes, oh my God, you got to write this down. Please come on my radio show. You know, I mean, it's like just an extraordinary amount of. Yes, he has found a lot of the history in old books, but like one copy of this book is in existence, and he's just not.
I want to hang out with him. Is he up here?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll get you in touch with him.
Because this doing this work has taken me. I've done a lot, also around this with the native sites. Like it connects through Upton State Forest into this reservoir in Hopkinton, and it's like the headwaters of the like rivers around here. And there's a lot that a lot of native wisdom to be.
There's nobody. I don't think there's anybody that knows it better than he does. So I will get you in touch with him, because he would just he'll you guys will never stop talking.
I could feel it. Like, I want to hang out with him.
Well, and what's interesting about it to me is that I don't think he realizes the full implications of why and what he's doing. Because when I've been with him, he's surrounded by Native Americans. And basically, he's so connected to a version of himself in the past that his whole life in this 3D experience has been one of trying to tell the story. So maybe you're the person he needs to tell the story to.
Yay! So I have this this old Irish monk is screaming at me to include his portion of the story right now. His name is Saint Brendan. So some of the archaeologists around here, they're like, okay, they were either colonial root sellers, which we can just dismiss that. The Native Americans built them, but then in the native lore, these were here already, or they don't claim to have built them. But a lot of that oral tradition got massacred, literally, right? But then, so the archaeologists are like, well, then they're the same construction as these Irish monks. So then there's this theory that Irish monks came to North America, long before Christopher Columbus. And in researching some of that online, I found this Brendan the Navigator. So he was a head of, not exactly the Jesuits, but a similar teaching order of the monks that I mentioned him. He was the one that built a lot of the beehive chambers. There's a Mount Brendan in Ireland, and he brought 3,000 or so monks to Skellig Michael and built the beehive chambers there. And then in Irish lore, he was instructed to fast for 40 days and then go on a 7-year cross-Atlantic voyage. And he talks about in his stories like crystals rising up from the oceans and serpent beasts and like his thing, and then finding this island of plenty, and like him coming. And there's a lot of, but that was in the 700s. So I have this feeling, and then where the land comes, the Charles River. So Boston, they land in, it's Iceland, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, Maine coast, down here into Boston. And then there's river passage via the Charles River, and the headwaters go all the way up into Hopkinton. Maybe you've heard of the Boston Marathon. It always starts in Hopkinton. There's a lot of sacred sites. So I've been, I drive by and try to figure out where they are and read about them. And so there's a few sites that I'm quote unquote stalking, grid worker style, and trying to find their location around these reservoirs in Hopkinton. And they link to this chamber site too, but that so he built these boats in Ireland out of leather and wood and sailed across the Atlantic. I'm like, oh, he could have come up the Charles and interacted with these Native Americans who were here already using these sites for their own purpose, but maybe they together built this, or they, that's my current intuition / thinking on it. But again, it doesn't necessarily matter to me, like who built them or when. And then I went to the site with a dear, dear friend of mine. She's one of the only people that's come with me in person. And she said to me a completely mind-blowing, awesome thing. She's like, what if you built this site in the future so that you could use it now? I was like, whoa, Jen, that's good. Or if this is built, who knows what timeline or where it was built on. But maybe this was built for us to use today.
Wow, that really resonates with me. That's very interesting. Because when I was trying to who built, ask the question, who built? And I wasn't sure if my imaginary mind was at play, because I was getting all these little, well, maybe it's here, maybe it's this, or maybe it's this one, And when you said that, I went, oh, they were just playing with me. Somewhere in the future, in an alternative version timeline, at someplace else, these were put here for us to use now. Because the other thing that's trending is this concept of the Earth is blowing apart. All the Yellowstone's going to blow. The Ring of Fire, it's all going to go. Everything's going to go. But if we could focus on creating a unified concept of using these beehives that have been made by somebody outside of us in order to use our own human toning sound capability. And if you don't feel comfortable toning, then pray. Use the words you would use to pray to alleviate all the energetics that could be fire and brimstone or could be love and light. That sound right?
Yeah. They're meant to be used, and they're meant to be used now. That's the message they're giving me. And there's a lot of them, and we might have them in our own backyards or adjacent to our kids' schools, or they're around. Even the New England, I'm going to butcher it, like NERA, New England Archaeological Research Association, I think, talks about like there's 500 in New England. Like 500, where are they? Like some of them are known, but most of them are not. So you could just, like you were saying, you find them walking in the woods and like, ooh, what's over here? And it doesn't matter if you find the actual entry. You just, they're everywhere for us to use.
Get with my brother Mark. He's like a bloodhound.
Yeah.
Tell him what you're looking for. I seriously, like he's been out walking and all of a sudden he gets this feeling and he begins to dig and he finds a well. He's not done this once or twice. He's done it like 3 or 4 times that I know of. Because there's wells also built all over the place that people don't know about. Interesting conversation. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I have a website. I have email. Should I say it? So my website is innerspacehealing.org, and my email is julie@innerspacehealing.org. I'm on Facebook. I have an Innerspace Facebook page. I'm actually working on a new website. I have like so much information on my Innerspace website that I'm working on a new, more dedicated to grid working and my tales from the field that I haven't launched yet, but I will. I will link that through the Innerspace page. But I'm calling that the Soul Planet. Those are good ways. Yeah, I'm on Facebook as Julie Dara Roberts, and I would love for people. This is like so. It's been so exciting to talk to people who are excited about listening about this story because it means a lot to me, and I really, really am so full of gratitude to both you ladies for having me on the show and taking the time to talk to me about all this stuff. It's my jammy jam. I can't, like, it's all I do pretty much. So that and take care of the kids and, run a household and run a business. But other than that, it's all I want to do and all I want to talk about. So it's so fun to have people like yourselves.
Yeah, I tell people if the subject doesn't have shungite in it, I'm not interested.
Yep. Yeah, and we didn't even get into the kids today, so we'll definitely have to call you back and have you on and talk about the kids.
I would love to do that. I also have another project I did with Katie Indicrow and Indicrow Academy. My first, like, quote-unquote research project with her was working on the Blackstone River, and I did a lot. Now I want to go back and do it with shungite, too. I'm definitely throwing some nuggets in that river, but I have a whole, like a similar tale like this, but involved in my grid working and water healing with the Blackstone River, which is up here.
I got to turn you on to a story that we don't have time for, but I'll get you a link to when Walter and I, you remember when they had the terrible mine spill back in 2016 in the Colorado area? It was going to kill 4 states and the Native American water system. You remember that? You saw pictures of this orange river?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, and then all of a sudden, nothing happened, right? I mean, it just disappeared, right? Well, it was Walter and myself and all the light workers coming together saying, no, not on our watch, that actually cleaned that river. And if I've got any proof of what we say is true, it's that story. So I'll get you the link to be able to hear that story. You'll love it. You'll absolutely love it. We are at the top of the hour, the end of the show. I am so grateful for knowing you and the stories. I mean, wow, we're going to have a good time. Steph, you got anything else you'd like to say?
Thank you so much, Julie. So grateful to connect, and thank you, listeners, for tuning into the Shungite Show today. We appreciate all of you.
And Julie, anything parting thought?
Full of gratitude and like happy. I'm a little verklempt with tears of happiness and elation. So thank you, everybody.
Next time you're up there with you putting that shungite in there,
yes,
give a thought to me and Steph. and Walter and Derek and all the other team members working, so hard to make this real. And just, give gratitude to the people, the spirits that are working with us, because obviously this is part of the matrix of our new reality. So I appreciate everybody. We're going to now listen to Freedom Slips in a little bit. I'm going to put a little music on. And tonight we're going to have a cosmic reality show that should be just rip-roaring fun, because we're going to analyze the data that says that JFK Jr., John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr., who supposedly died in an airplane crash in 1999, may be alive and well and working with President Trump and all the other anonymous people out there that are changing reality at the 3D. It should be fun. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Be safe, be blessed, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Reality Radio Show, produced by Haggy Shack Radio and simulcast over Cosmic Reality Radio.